Hey, I want to share some thoughts today about why it's okay to postpone thinking about your exit strategy and maybe a few reasons why you want to consider it now.
Welcome to the Intentional Success Podcast, where we unpack the top strategies, explore business trends, and drill down into best practices to help your live events production business grow and scale on purpose. I'm your host, Tom Stimson.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. I have the exit strategy conversation probably, once a week. Certainly, I ask any new prospect, what are their thoughts on that? And it's just part of the interview process, right? Tell me more about your business. How'd you get started? Where are you at now? What are your biggest concerns? And what's your exit strategy? And it's fairly consistent. If they're my age, or should we say people over 50, they say, I thought about it, but I just don't have one, or gosh, I really need to come up with one. And then there's the younger folks that say, dude, I'm having fun. I'm making some money. I don't need to think about that now. I've got to do this for 20, 30 more years. And I think, I'm always uncomfortable with both of those responses. And let me tell you why. Now we're accidental entrepreneurs. So, there's not many of us who sat down and wrote out a business plan, went to the SBA, got a coach, figured out how to do all of this. We mostly were accidental entrepreneurs who jumped in with both feet and then suddenly found ourselves with employees and debt and, leases and maybe even a mortgage related to our business. And we're so busy scrambling to get the revenue and, earn the money to keep all of that moving that we're not thinking about, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or 20 years from now, even if it is already 20 years from now from when you should have asked that question. But still I ask because it gives me a reading. It gives me, tells me where that person's thoughts are. What's going to drive them? What's their motivation? Because I'll ask them and say, hey, well, I realize you're in your late 30s and exit strategy is not the top of your concerns. Do you have a family? You're expecting kids to join the business? Do you have a hobby you really are passionate about? Or are you truly an entrepreneur? Or are you somebody who found themselves in this business? You're really a video engineer, or you're a salesperson, or you're an event producer. Why are you in this business? And then other than putting groceries on the table for now in the next, couple decades, why do you do this? So where's this all going to lead? And, people start to open up saying, my wife and I have talked about traveling one day and, I'd like to do this. And, my dream job would be this. Or sometimes they say, I'd really like to take this to, the next 2 or 3 levels. I want to see how big I can grow it. I want to acquire companies. I want to build an empire. And it's like, awesome. These are all great answers. But how are they important? And so how are these answers important? Well, let me take you to the scenarios the conversations that I have that I always go, man, I wish we had this conversation 10 or 15 years ago. And there's people my age, people who are looking at retirement. It's not that far off. And they're saying, man, I need to be able to exit my business in 2 years. Or I've set a target for, when I'm going to retire and I need to work up until that time. And then somehow magically we're going to convert this business. We're going to monetize this business in some way. And they're like, man, you're late. I'm sorry. It's like, here are the things, it's like, hey, I want to work on my business for 2 more years or 3 more years or 5 more years and see if we, can't make it more sellable. And I'm like, do you really have that much gas in your tank to do that? Can we get you a soft landing without going through all that extra work, which honestly might not be worth the extra trouble. You watch those, those HGTV shows where they, love it or list it, something like that, where it's like, hey, if I put this money in the house, then I can list it for more money than it'd be worth on the market right now. And we think about our businesses that way. What can I do to make my business worth more money? We're giving buyers way too much credit, right? People aren't looking at all the nuanced things you do to improve your processes and position people and, maybe grow a revenue stream. All they're really looking at is how much cash was this company able to throw off over the past 3 to 5 years, which means that you have to have 3 to 5 years of improvement before that effort will actually make a difference, which is completely different from selling a house. People buy the house in the moment that it exists. This is what it looks like now. There's the money they put into it. I'm not paying them extra money for that pool they put in. And it's not the pool I would have put in anyway, but here's what the house is worth. Well, businesses are the same way. And when you're older, your options are fewer because the investment in effort and time to make it worth more is not a good ROI. So, exit strategy for, people that are in their 60s or approaching 70 is like, let's pull back a little bit and say, hey, what's a better option for us here? What are we trying to achieve? What's your retirement look like? And, what is your financial planner saying that you need to do in order to enjoy the retirement that you want? Because we're not going to dramatically improve your retirement condition in 3 to 5 years. An exit strategy is not going to be better over a 3 to 5 year period to make a significant improvement in your retirement. Maybe you could retire at a slightly lower level and buy back 5 years of your life. Those are conversations that we need to have at the older age. But most of my clients and most of the people I'm reaching out today are much, much younger now. Back during the pandemic, I talked to a lot of people who started their business in the 80s and early 90s. Now I deal with people who, took the helm, started their business, maybe in the last 10 years. It's a very different conversation. But exit strategy is still important. It's because we need to steer the ship. We need to know where it is we're going. Many of you know, I love dinghy sailing. I was a dinghy sailor for a long time. And we don't have, all the stuff you get on big boats and yachts, and we don't have compasses and things and computers that tell us and depth finders. We literally look across the lake and we line up a tree and a radio tower to see how we're staying on course. Because the thing about a sailboat is you don't stay on course. You can point it somewhere, but you've got waves and currents and winds that are pushing you in another direction, which is really the fun of sailing. But we need to know how far it pushed us and when do we have to change direction to get back on that course. And that's why I like to have that exit strategy conversation with younger folks, because if your goal is to one day sell the business, which means you have to work yourself out of the business, where you surplus to the operation of the business, that's what makes it easy for you to sell the company. We need to start thinking about what does that look like. And if I'm dealing with somebody who's 40 years old and they are absolutely passionate about that, roll up your sleeves tactical job that they do every day. They love going out on show site and being the producer or the show caller or running crews. They love basking in the moment of the live show and everything. Exit strategies for those people are very difficult because they have to grow out of that to see themselves someplace else. And some of us don't grow out of that, to be quite honest. Can I convince them that, hey, why don't you pursue that lifestyle and live that person and figure out who's going to run your business for you? Oh, no, I can't let go of things. Okay, let's figure out what your goal is. Can we keep your eye on the goal and move these two things, these two conflicting ideas back and forth to kind of guide you in that direction? So it's always important to have the conversation. I've got clients now who are in their 20s, which is just a hoot and a half. I mean, they're younger than my kids, for goodness sake. And, the last thing on their mind is exit strategy, except it's not. I find the 20 to 30 generation is far more in tune with exit strategies than the 30 to 40 generation. And while the 30 to 40 generation often goes, well, yeah, I have an exit strategy. I want somebody to pay me a lot of money for this business. And I want that in 5 years, but that's not an exit strategy. That's really a pipe dream. They're not thinking about how that's going to happen. they still heard stories from their elders, from the people one generation ahead of them, where that stuff happened. Spoiler alert, it doesn't happen anymore. There aren't people out there trying to do massive roll-ups and throwing monies at companies, trying to build a bigger business and take it, public on the stock market. Those days are gone. That's what we did in the 90s. People tried to do it in the early, mid, 2005, 2007 until the stock market crashed. And nobody's trying to do that anymore. A roll-up these days is trying to find a larger and larger private equity investor. And when we talk about exit strategy involving private equity, and what does that look like, and how is that going to get you to your goals, most folks don't like it. They go, wait a minute, that's not what I'm looking for. What do you mean? Somebody's going to own my company and tell me that I can't buy new equipment, or my CapEx budget is now 3% instead of 12%, and things like that. That's not how this business works, but that's how private equity works. So, is all private equity bad? No, of course not. Is the model for a private equity, acquisition, bolt on, find another company, bolt it on, try and create economies of scale through volume? Is that a fundamentally flawed model? No. But the problem with private equity is that they want to pay for it as they go. They're not completely betting on the outcome. They're not willing to postpone all of their returns. They want to cover their expenses along the way, which is another expense that most companies actually can't afford. However, if you need that as an option, the best exit strategy is to be profitable. And this is kind of what it all comes back to, I guess. And I think that's going to be the point of my podcast today, is that every conversation about an exit strategy, whether we don't see it yet or it is on the near horizon, comes back to how profitable can you make your company. And when you focus on profitability, you often have to take into consideration the things that have kept you profitable for a long time, which can be employees that have been with you forever, since the beginning. Oh, they've been with me since the beginning. It's like, well, great. They're not adding any value to the business. I know. But it's not time yet. It's not time yet. If I have a buyer, then, maybe this is somebody that they won't hire. Going, it's affecting your profitability. So if you want a great buyer, or if you want to, fund your exit strategy, you're going to have to take care of the problems now. You can't identify the problems and have somebody pay you to solve them for you, right? So solve your profitability problem, solve your transferability problem, and don't get caught into the some of the traps that people of my generation did, which was keep people around for long past their useful life, their use life. And this is not ageism. This is, we grow out of people, we grow out of skill sets. Are we upgrading our people? And the other thing that I have to bring to the table in this conversation is that, in my era, we didn't need to upgrade our people because we thought our business model worked. And if we just keep doing what we're doing and we keep all this experience there, we're going to be great at doing shows. Everything will be just fine. But now we're trying to do that same thing. We now know that we have to get shows done at half the overhead costs that we did before. And that means we don't get to keep folks forever. We need to have the right folks that allow us to operate at optimum performance. And, well, Tom, I'll find somebody who wants to buy my company. Okay. But what if they find a company first that's already scalable, is, doing $1 million of revenue per FTE and is highly profitable, and they cost twice as much as you, but they're throwing off 4 times the cash that you are? What do you think the buyer is going to do? They can either look at you as a bargain fixer-upper and going, hey, I could clean house here and I could make this a scalable organization, or fold it into my scalable organization. But what's the deal they're going to make with you? So think about your exit strategy, think about the long term, but understand that your ability to be profitable now is what's going to make you exitable in the future. So that's where a lot of your energy needs to be. Betting on the come, going, hey, it's going to be great next year. Yeah, we're doing these things that's going to increase revenue, and that's what's going to make us profitable. These are the things that we have to challenge and go, really, is that going to be that simple to do? So for all of you out there, business owners, principals, partners, get amongst yourselves and have your exit strategy with your internal stakeholders. You need to know where you're going. You need to have an honest conversation about how are you going to get what you hope to do. And if I can help you with that, if I can help you with the strategy, help you with the information, obviously I want to do that. But my real goal here is to make sure that you know and understand that exit strategy matters now. It will matriculate later, and it will matriculate better because you thought about it proactively today. There you go. There's some thoughts on exit strategy. Man, the phone calls keep coming. Great topics headed my way. I'm happy to share them with you. Thanks for listening.
If you want to find out more about today's episode, go to trstimson.com/podcast, where you'll find the show notes, related links, and tons of other valuable resources. If you haven't already subscribed to the Intentional Success Podcast, please do so, and I'd greatly appreciate if you would rate and review the show. Also, if you think you might be a good fit to work together or want more information about the Stimson Group, I'd love to hear from you. Visit trstimson.com for more information.